It's just crowd control music. All right, guys. I've got 4:59 local time. I'm going to start a little early tonight. How about that? How about that for bucking the trend? Tuesday, March 7th, 2017. This is the filter number 117. There's a lot of sevens in there, huh?
Danger Mouse's own episode.
Danger Mouse is not here tonight, although maybe he's in the chat room. We'll have to see about that.
It's your session, Will.
We're gonna try and have a good show, even though Willie Woo is not with us, at least not in person. I think he's here in spirit. But we got a lot of stuff to cover. It's exciting in Bitcoin land. We got the ETF coming up here. We got all kinds of Bitcoin congestion. The Bitcoin network is jam-packed. It's like a 5-lane highway with 6 lanes of traffic, right? And Bitcoin fees are going crazy. Bitcoin's getting expensive. I had one transaction that cost me 60 cents this week. And maybe I'm just cheap. I don't know. We're going to talk about Bitcoins in China. It's been a month since they halted Bitcoin withdrawals. And also, we're going to have a little visit with that really nice little gray-haired lady named Janet Yellen. You guys know who Janet Yellen is? She's in the news, and we're going to have a little visit with her. All right, let's kick it off here, fellas, and ladies, and ladies. Got some ladies in the house. Hey, guys. All right, come on in, pull up a chair. Let me see if I can share my screen with the folks at home. Hopefully everybody at home is seeing what we're seeing. Okay, this is the filter number 117. We've done this 116 times before. We're going to do it at least one more time. And let's see what we got here. All right. We are coming to you live from Ubud in Bali, ubud.org. And when we're not together, we're in this Facebook group, right? This is where we crowdsource the Bitcoin news. If you're not a member of the group and you're in the room right now, I want to invite you to join us in our Facebook group. Now, I got a little bit of local news here about the Facebook group. We've got almost 1,300 people in the group now. So we are going to close the group. Right now, it's a public group, and it has become a little bit burdensome to try and keep all the spam out of the group. And also, there's lots and lots of fake people that try to join the group. And so we are going to move to we're going to make a little bit of a change. We're going to take it from, you can see that it's a public group right now. Anybody can see it, anybody can join. But we're going to change that to a closed group. Now what that means is people will still be able to see that the group exists, and they will be able to see who's a member, but they're not going to be able to see the posts anymore. We're going to try and keep this a little bit of a local flavor, a little bit of a, discussions with people that we've met or know. Obviously when people come and see us in Bali, we can get them into the group. And obviously there's great conversations that take place there already. It's not going to change much for the people that hang out in the Bitcoins in Bali group. But if you've got anyone that you think would be interested in it, I invite you to invite them to join, because we're going to close it probably within the next week. We're going to close the Bitcoins in Bali group, right about, a little over 1,000 people in the group right now.
And it's okay if they're not in Bali?
It's okay if they're not in Bali, as long as they're going to be a good contributor and interested in what we're doing. And basically it's for, people to have a polite, interesting, thoughtful discussions. And we're just trying to keep it that way. Now, in its stead, we're going to introduce this Bitcoins in Bali page, which is Facebook has groups. They also have pages, and the page is a little bit easier to deal with the masses. So if anybody, I'm not that familiar with Facebook pages, so maybe if there are people in the group that have a little bit of expertise, we can. We're going to go to Kismet after the meeting tonight. Maybe we can kick around a few ideas. But I've talked to a bunch of people about it. Seems like this is the good way to go. And we were able to secure this cool URL, facebook.com/Bitcoins in Bali. And pretty soon here, that'll be the public-facing news source on what we've got going on here in Bali. And the group will be a little bit more of a walled garden for us to have a conversation, right? Again, not trying to exclude anybody, just trying to make sure that there's not, trying to maintain the signal to noise ratio, right? All right. Speaking of local news, we've got Bitcoin 101 this month on March 25th, Saturday, March 25th, 10 a.m. in this very room. We're going to have maybe 10 or 15 Bitcoin noobs show up, Bitcoin virgins, people who we assume they know nothing about Bitcoin, and we're going to corrupt their mind, give them a red pill, take them down the rabbit hole. It's going to be fun. We will have a practical session where we actually download a Bitcoin wallet onto their phone. We give them the option of maybe even getting some Bitcoin on their phone, and then later we magically turn their Bitcoin into a hamburger. Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. I invite everybody to invite your friends to join us. That's Saturday, March 25th. I don't have all the details yet, but just check the Facebook group for details. The other place where we're going to start posting more information is on the bitcoinsinbali.org website. That's right, folks. We've got a bitcoinsinbali.org website that will go live in 23 hours from now. T-minus 23 hours. Hang on to your hats. I would set an alarm or something because it's going to be very, very exciting. At this time tomorrow, I don't know quite what's going to happen. I think there's, well, we'll just have to see, huh? 23 hours. Look at how spellbinding that countdown clock is.
No beard.
Oh yeah, I'm clean cut now. I'm turning over a new leaf. Interpol got a picture of me with beard, so I had to like switch it up.
You should be okay.
All right, guys, let's get into the thick of it here. Let's take a look at the price. The price right now in rupiah. Well, check this out. Indonesian IDR. We're approaching 17 million. Boy, I remember the good old days when the Bitcoin machine out there in the foyer here at Ubud said 4 million, 3 million back in the day. And I remember people come up to me and saying, 3 million for one Bitcoin? You only get one Bitcoin for 3 million? And look at us now. We're toying with 17 million IDR per Bitcoin. Holy smokes. Must be because of our efforts here in Bali. I'm sure. But most people are used to talking about Bitcoin in dollars. And here we go. The dollar price is $1,252.35. Now, that's the global average. We got a US dollar index here, which is 1269. Why is the US dollar index 1269, but the global average is only 1252? What's up with that? What's up with that? Any hypothesize out there on why the USD price is higher than the global average? No? Bueller? No takers? Okay, well, this is my hypothesis. I would love to be challenged on this, but for the last month, there has been 0 Bitcoin withdrawals on Chinese Bitcoin exchanges.
All right.
Actually, these numbers used to be reversed. Used to be that the global price was high and the USD price was lower. And ever since hey, Sophie, come on in, pull up the chair. Oliver, now might be a good time to like start sending that thing around.
I already did.
Okay, cool.
Where was it?
Why the price differential? Well, a month ago when they halted those Bitcoin withdrawals on the Chinese exchanges, it was the reverse. It was a higher global price and a lower USD price. And as soon as they enacted that, unless it was a total coincidence, that dynamic flipped on its head and the global average was lower than the US dollar price.
But is it the yuan price that is the outlier or the USD price?
Well, I mean, this is translated into USD price, and presumably the global average, although it's nominally in dollars, is probably taking a Chinese price and factoring it into
Sure.
their
If
algorithm.
You see, you look at the exchange rates, is the yuan price that's different from all the other prices in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a different yuan price if you do the conversion. And that's very interesting because we're going to talk about the Chinese situation. I'm going to save that for later. But I think it's very interesting that that we're hovering here around 1250. Now, let's take a look at this price, a little longer view of the price here. Check this out. This is the price over time. This is the entire life of Bitcoin, right? And if I even, well, you can see that there's like a doppelganger thing that happens where we have a bubble and then a crash, and then a bubble and then a crash. And each time this happens, crashes back down to a level that is higher than the former high price, right? So we have a bubble and then a crash. Sorry, you can't really see that. Can you follow? Can you follow my logic here, guys? It goes way up, then there's a crash, and it settles above the former high. This has happened a bunch of different times. In fact, you can see this fractal pattern happening over and over. If you go and look at the chart for 1 hour, sometimes it makes this little pattern. And this is something that Willy Woo has written about. Well, see, Willie's now that Willie's not here, I can use all of his lingo, and he's not here to defend himself. But I can't. I don't have his help, pumping Bitcoin. I have to do it all myself. So what's really interesting about this is, this keeps happening, and how is this going to manifest itself in the environment we have in here? Here you can see it's happening again. We have a spike and a crash, a spike and a crash, spike and a crash, and it's ratcheting up, like one of those ratchet wrenches where you can't really go backwards, you can't really go down. And here we are at a new all-time high, which means that we have to discover where that next bubble is going to burst, right? And there's a bunch of factors affecting the price right now. We've got the halt on Bitcoin withdrawals on the Chinese exchanges.
Which part right there?
That happened on February 9th. So let's see, maybe around here. So what's interesting about that is the price still climbed even though the Chinese regulators got involved, and really that's kind of negative news if you think about it, yet the price is still climbing. Why? Maybe it's because we've got the Bitcoin ETF on the blocks, March 13th. Mark your calendar, folks. Mark your calendar first for tomorrow at 5 o'clock, because that's when bitcoinsinbali.org goes live.
Done.
Then the next biggest date time in the Bitcoin universe is March 13th, when perhaps, oh boy, we might have a Bitcoin exchange traded fund, and we can start making Bitcoin derivatives and start controlling the price, and it can be manipulated just like gold and silver. Oh, it's going to be great, guys. I can't wait till we have a Bitcoin exchange traded fund so that the powers that be can get involved. Also, your grandmother can invest in Bitcoin. That's the plus side of the ETF. But this is a representation, I believe, of the fervor, the anticipation, the enthusiasm for a Bitcoin ETF. And I think Willie has done some more sophisticated analysis than mine that shows that the Bitcoin price really does reflect the likelihood that ETF will be approved, right?
So overall, is it positive, or what, are they trying to undermine Bitcoin?
Well, I think it's positive and negative.
It's probably legitimizes Bitcoin, but on the other side,
It does. It legitimizes
Exposes
Bitcoin, but it also gives them the ability to maybe push the price around without actually having Bitcoin. Yeah, it remains to be seen.
And who has to legitimize it?
The Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States.
Oh my,
jeez.
oh my gosh.
Oh, geez. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Whoop. Oh, boy.
Concerning.
SEC. SEC. Oh boy.
If it's gone
Okay.
if it's gone that mainstream,
Sell your
Yes,
Bitcoin.
the cat is out of the bag.
right?
Even Wall Street knows about Bitcoin right now.
Yeah.
All right, this is what has happened over the last week in Bitcoin. Here we have our Bitcoins in Bali meeting. Of course, that drives the price up. And we've got the price kind of hovering during the week. And then they also found out that we were meeting and the price went down. So it's no coincidence that there's a very high correlation between the Bitcoin price and the filter meetings every Tuesday night at 5 p.m. local time, hubu.org, rain or shine. All right, here is the Bitcoin price target from none other than Seeking Alpha. Now, Seeking Alpha is not a Bitcoin shill. This is not a Bitcoin website. This is more of a trader's website. It's the equivalent of mainstream media for traders. And they are also bullish. Now, this article explains why Bitcoiners and Bitcoin sites aren't really capable of forecasting the Bitcoin price. Really, you should just listen to the people on Wall Street from Seeking Alpha. Let me see what I've highlighted here. Most readers would turn to cryptocurrency blogosphere, where they will read ultra bullish Bitcoin price forecasts on woobull.com for 2017, similar to this one from CoinDesk. The issue with this approach is that those sites only feature Bitcoin enthusiasts and entrepreneurs, so they offer a very biased view, especially from Willy Woo, says Seeking Alpha. But they go on to also be bullish for their own reasons, saying that, where's their list here? Oh, here's the number of Bitcoin ATMs around the world. According to Statista, Bitcoin usage keeps on growing as seen by the number of Bitcoin ATMs, which increased from 538 in January 2016 to 838 by November. Check out that graph. That seems to be heading up and to the right, our favorite direction for Bitcoin graphs.
Who's making the ETFs? They're making
Here we go. The trading volume on major Bitcoin exchanges is structurally higher for the last 12 months. In other words, fundamentally, the picture for Bitcoin looks very good. This is not only a market for speculators anymore, but for real users in Bali buying stuff at Kismet and The Onion. The only negative is that the price may rise too quickly. Guys, these are our problems. The Bitcoin price might go up too much, too fast. Actually, last week we talked about Vinny Lingham's article about why that actually could be kind of a bummer, because when that happens, a lot of people get burned, and it takes a while for the average person who got burned to recover. But let's see what happens. Anyway, their forecast is $2,000. You know, I really think they should have chosen like not such a round number. It would have made me think they're more sophisticated. Just, you know, is it just maybe they're that sophisticated and it is going to be 2,000? But I don't know. Well, we shall see.
You would prefer 1999.99.
Yeah.
At what hour
And
Here's
now.
here's a new website for you guys. I just found this one. Coin Salad. Somebody did a search on the last word that wasn't associated with coin or bit, and that was the word salad. And they started the website Coin Salad. And these guys are remarking that according to Coin Salad, you heard it here first. That's a cool graphic, isn't it? It's a salad, and there's like
Bitcoin in there.
Bitcoin does not taste good. Plus, you have to recover them. You know, that's messy. Okay.
That's your thing.
No, it's carrots. They're carrots.
Is that a carrot or Bitcoin? Oh man. Okay. The point they're making though is Bitcoin market cap. Bitcoin market cap is over 20 billion US dollars. 20 billion. That's a lot of money. Billion here, billion there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money. $20 billion. Also for half that in cash.
Small though.
It is. It's small. This is small potatoes for Wall Street. But it is the elephant in the room when it comes to cryptocurrencies. I think Ethereum is number 2 at like 1.5 billion. So 20x or 15x, something like that for Bitcoin. Here's a chart from our man Willie Woo. We look at this every week, and we compare this figure right here. We're in double-digit volatility for the last 60 days. If only Will were here to elucidate why we are in this territory of 10% volatility. Things are going up and down, up and down, up and down for the last 60 days. Last week, this volatility figure was 6.8, if I'm not mistaken. 6.8% to 10%. It's a wild ride, folks. I don't think Bitcoin has a lot of utility as a currency for the average user until this gets down here around the USD Euro cross, or I think he also has graphed here the USD New Zealand dollar cross. These are mainstream currencies in terms of 60-day volatility. These blue lines down here. This is Bitcoin up here, this red line, this crazy red line. The trend line is down, but right now volatility is up. And
That is the highest it's ever been, right?
we're in double digits.
Yep.
Double-digit territory. Here's another thing that's going on with Bitcoin. Check this out. They had to change this graph. Do you guys remember looking at this graph before? This graph used to stop right here at greater than 90. But now Bitcoin transactions have become so expensive, they've had to create all these new categories of, basically these are price blocks for how expensive a Bitcoin transaction is. And right now, for a Bitcoin transaction, the suggested price is 169 Satoshis per byte. I did a transaction this week, and it was 521.62 bits, Bitcoin bits, which is about 65 cents. So 65 cents for a transaction on a, maybe an $8 meal at a local Bitcoin establishment, Seeds of Life, I think it was. We're starting to get up there. We're starting to get up there. It's starting to make less and less sense to make small retail transactions. And, well, why is that? It's because the Bitcoin network is full, right? Who can tell me how big a Bitcoin block is? A Bitcoin is a blockchain, and there's a new block every 10 minutes. How big are those blocks?
You mentioned this before. I forgot.
Yeah. 1 megabyte.
Yes.
Each Bitcoin block in the Bitcoin blockchain is 1 megabyte. And at this very moment, there is 64 megabytes that would like to be worth of transactions that would like to be in the next Bitcoin block.
So the backlog is 64.
That's a bit of a log jam. You can see this is over the last 24 hours, we've got a very steady, approximately 60 megabytes of transactions that are waiting to get into the next block. In fact, all these people, all these cheap people down here who paid less than 50 Satoshis per byte have been waiting greater than 12 hours. These are all, this light blue color here, are all people that have been waiting more than 12 hours in order to get their first confirmation on their Bitcoin transaction.
Does that mean they're waiting at the point of sale, or they're waiting?
They're
for
sleeping. They're sleeping under
They're
the.
still waiting.
They're sleeping in the cabinet at Kismet.
All these hobos.
They're washing dishes over at Kismet, like waiting for them to let them go.
Ain't happening.
Yeah, this is
If you buy your food tonight at Kismet, you're probably not going to get paid till sometime tomorrow.
right. Sometime next week. So this is my favorite adjective for this circumstance is suboptimal.
Yeah.
Suboptimal. Really not the greatest situation. We were spoiled for 2 years, shopping for stuff here in Ubud on Bitcoin, paying 2 cents, 3 cents, and now we're paying 60 cents, 70 cents, sometimes over $1 if you've got a multi-sig transaction, for example.
Gary,
So
does that mean that is it limited to how many transactions per second? Is it?
It varies. The technical limit, if every transaction was as small as it could possibly be, you could get to about 7. But the average is, I think, between 2 and 4. So really, you can only get between 2 and 4 transactions per second on the Bitcoin network.
Is that what also when you say it's jam now? Is that also?
Let's take a look. Yeah, it's totally, there's a log jam, right? Here,
So what's the
here's the transactions per second, and we can't see the y-axis here. Oh, here we go. This line right here, you can't see it. There's a line here that's 5 transactions per second. So right here is, so we're oscillating between 2 and 5. And really, you know, when we watched this space before, we would see we would look at this graph and it would spike, but it would recover. You know, there'd be a big backlog, but then it would work its way back down to 0. And we're seeing, you know, basically a steady backlog, and it's not good. It's not a good situation.
Gary, can you just explain a little bit about the mechanics of how that works? Like, essentially, it looks like people are being offered to pay different prices in order, like, you pay higher to get your trade done quicker. But like, if you're buying something at a local shop here, you don't really have the option to decide how much you want to pay, do you?
Well, it depends on the wallet that you use.
Okay.
If you look at the settings in your wallet, and basically there are different implementations, but you can make a choice when you spend to, you know, usually there's a few categories like economic, normal, and priority.
Okay.
And you know, wallets are trying to, on your behalf, choose a good fee that will mean that you're right. But that's on the user, and really it's a tricky situation for the merchant, because, you know, if you're at a restaurant, somebody pays their bill, you don't want to, you know, handcuff them to the counter until the transaction confirms. But
So you can do a child pays for parents. I've done it myself now, and it works really good.
yeah, you've done the child pays for parent thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you explain, or do you?
Yeah, if you send a transaction that's got too small fee, you can send another transaction that spends the money in the first transaction and add a larger fee, and that will pay for both transactions. And then the miners will include both, because the total sum of the fees are high enough. And the good thing is that the receiver of the payment can do this. So I get a payment, it's not enough fee, I realize I will never get it, then I can, but I got my private key. So I can spend the money I got in another transaction, pay the fee, and get the money. But also the sender, if there's a change on theirs, can also do that. Then they spend the change. And that will pay for both the change spending transaction and the original transaction.
Okay.
So both receiver and sender can make the transaction go through.
And you have done this yourself?
Yes.
And how does that work? Do you have a wallet that gives you that?
I use Electrum, and now the latest version of Electrum started built in the GUI. And I use an older version, and then there's a tab, and I can see the outputs that I had. So I can select it, pay from this one, and then make payment.
Okay.
So I can choose from which address I would send the money, and then I choose the one that's not.
Right. So it's good that that's possible, but I think this is something that the average user is probably gonna.
Yeah, but it's possible to automate.
Yeah.
So it could be that your wallet sees and realizes that, oh, I will never get this money, and do a child pays for parent transaction automatically without the user being aware.
Right. Cool. Of course, you've also got replace by fee. So there is a flag that you can attach to your transaction that says it's possible to do a replace by fee, so that if you have a transaction that gets caught in the mempool, you can resubmit that transaction with a higher fee, and then that transaction should make it into the next block as well.
But then the receiver can't trust you paid until it's in the block, because you can always change
Right.
it out.
Yes.
Yeah. But with the child pays for parent, it's the receiver's got full control.
Yes.
So the receiver operates the child pays for parent.
Both can do it, but you can't claw the money back as a sender.
Yeah, the merchant is more motivated.
Yeah, the
to do
merchant.
it.
I'm like, why would you bother doing it? It's only the merchant that wants to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
so
if
really,
you're honest, I mean, that's what I did.
so if I'm kind of a douchebag and I walk around, this is hypothetical. JP, So
you
that's a
said that
political
with such
situation.
authority.
If I'm a jerk, I can walk around Ubud and pay for everything with a zero fee. It'll hit the mempool, so their wallet might say that they got it, but I can force them to pay the fee for the transaction if I like. Yeah. Interesting. We're in uncharted territory, guys.
Yeah, but the longest wait is it's over 12 hours. We don't know what's been the longest.
Well, here's the thing. Here's something that's interesting. These guys are saying that the mempool is 60 megabytes, right?
Yeah.
But I go over to another site, and it tells me that the mempool is, where's the mempool? Mempool size is 12. What's going on there? Why do some people think there's a 60 megabyte mempool, and some people think there's a 12 megabyte mempool? Well, because nodes decide what transactions to keep, right? So throughout the end of time, anybody can submit any transaction to the Bitcoin network, and it's up to nodes on the network to decide, yes, this is a good Bitcoin transaction, or this is not. And so actually, every piece of software that's participating in the Bitcoin network can say, I'm only going to keep transactions that fit this criteria, and I'm only going to keep transactions that keep this criteria. So there is not a consensus view on how large the mempool transaction or mempool is, because there are different policies. Questions?
So, according to this, they're only going to process, there's a 12 backlog. So how many minutes would that mean? In terms of another graph, you have the estimated time frame for the transaction. If it's around 12,
right?
What's the speed of the transaction?
Perhaps these guys are dropping all of the everything in the mempool that is less than 10 satoshis per byte. Perhaps they drop those. In which case, they might have a different average time. Someone could resubmit that transaction, and that's another thing that people can do is if you think that your transaction has fallen out of the majority of node mempools, you can actually resubmit or rebroadcast the transaction and try again.
So basically, it's just too expensive right now to do small scale transactions. Right?
It's getting there.
Larger transactions is fine, but like small transactions,
it's getting to
if
be.
you don't pay the transaction fee, you're not going to get the transaction through.
Right.
But the solution for this is to increase the size from 1 megabyte to.
Well, let's talk about that. This is actually a good segue.
That's what everyone's trying to figure out, yeah?
Oh, I just want to make one more point about the fees.
Okay.
Check this out. This is very interesting. This is the number of Bitcoin addresses that have a certain amount of Bitcoin associated with their address. So check out the largest chunk. 55% are Bitcoin addresses that have a balance of less than 0.001 Bitcoins, right? So basically, there are 55% of the outstanding addresses cannot send any Bitcoin, right? Because the fee is larger than the amount of Bitcoin that's actually in the address.
Oh.
Now, people are reusing addresses, right? So basically people, this is what they call Bitcoin dust. Have you heard this term? Where people are sending Bitcoins and deciding what the inputs or outputs are, and there's, sometimes a little bit of Bitcoin will get trapped in an address. And that's called Bitcoin dust. And it's defined as Bitcoin that is so small in that address that the fee is larger than the Bitcoin that's actually in there. But it's kind of fascinating that 55% of the Bitcoin addresses outstanding fall into this category of dust. Let's see, it's a total of 1.6. What is this?
1,618 Bitcoin.
Are trapped. $2 million are trapped in Bitcoin addresses that where you can't get the Bitcoin out.
Well, could these also be used for blockchain tracking? These are just addresses that they're using to, like we were talking about before about provenance. Because they're using small transactions for that.
I think not anymore because including them will cost a lot in fees. So no wallet will do that.
Yes, that's a good point. I mean, people have had all kinds of their own ideas about how to use Bitcoin. In fact, we're going to talk about a Bitcoin voting mechanism out of Australia that is doing this in a minute. That's one of the news items. But yeah, it changes the viable use cases. I mean, when every time you want to write something to the Bitcoin blockchain, if it costs 50, 60 cents, it changes a lot of the economics dynamics of the use cases that are, the rainbow of use cases that are possible. What were we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the solution to the problem. Let's talk about, wow, this doom and gloom. Let's talk about solutions, huh? Come on, guys, you're bumming me out here with all this roadblock talk. So here are the two suggested solutions. Segregated witness, SegWit. This is where they this is a technology that solves a bunch of Bitcoin problems, from transaction malleability to the throughput problem, by taking the signature out of the actual transaction, keeping track of those separately, thus allowing more room for more transactions in the actual block of the blockchain. And however, this needs 95% adoption before it can actually start working. And right now we're at about, and we're kind of, we seem to have clocked out around 25%, right? And for the last 24 hours, we're under 20%. So that's seems to be a little bit of a non-starter. The other option is Bitcoin Unlimited. This is the other camp, and there are two camps, two different opinions about what should be done in order to alleviate this problem. The second one is Bitcoin Unlimited. This is championed by the Bitcoin Jesus, Roger Ver. And check this out, the plot thickens. Roger Ver, who has his own mining pool, he's so upset about this Bitcoin gridlock that he started his own mining pool, right? This mining pool has 2.3% of the network, 80 petahashes of computing power. But check this out. Check out the fine print here, guys. If you join his pool, he's going to pay you 110% of the block reward. How does that work?
He's trying to build up volume. He wants people to adopt his system.
Right. He's creating his own incentives. He's trying to get people, he's creating an artificial circumstance here where people get 10% more if they go with his mining pool, which has implemented Bitcoin Unlimited, which is the solution is basically, instead of a 1 megabyte block, miners can choose whatever size block they want. Right. 100 megabyte block if they want to. Now there are diminishing economic returns for creating large blocks, and the theory behind Bitcoin Unlimited is that miners will make a self-interested choice to make big enough blocks, but not blocks that are too big, right? And they want to keep a certain amount of congestion so that the fees are reasonable, but they don't want to clear the entire mempool because then fees go back down to zero. So there is we're talking about incentives of a mass group of people. We do not know how the Bitcoin universe will react to unlimited Bitcoin block sizes.
He wants the market to decide.
They want the market to decide. The Bitcoin Unlimited would like the market to decide how big the blocks will be.
So, how much does it cost to set up a mining pool?
Good question. Why don't you figure that out and bring when you come back? I have no idea. That's your homework. All right, you heard it here first. Next Tuesday night, we're going to get I don't know. It's
Sounds like serious in Japan? Is that where his miners are located?
They're mostly in China.
Mostly in China.
They're mostly in China.
He sent this from Tokyo.
But yeah, Roger Ver lives in Tokyo. There's a lot of new interest in Bitcoin in Japan. I don't know if well, this is a mining pool, so there can be miners all over the world that are participating in this particular pool, pooling their resources and sharing the profits.
How do you join the mining pool? What do you need to join the mining pool?
You just
You
well
need a
you
miner
You
first of
find
all.
the best
well
one
you could take your laptop, run the Bitcoin Core software, and then point your output at the pool, and
That's
away you go. But in order to really do it profitably, you'd probably have to get some space in a data center and get some specialized hardware and
Make sure electricity is cheap.
yeah. But anybody could do it. It's open source software, and there are no barriers except for the.
So the electricity is basically electricity to run your computer, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest cost.
It's going to be run all the time.
Yeah.
It's on all the time.
Yes, and it's very power intensive. Essentially, these processors are doing a brute force calculation. They're saying, is 1 the answer? No. Is 2 the answer? No. Is 3 the answer? No. Is 4 the answer? And they're just doing that, and the processor is constantly checking those values to see if they've solved the query or not.
I did this little experiment with Renee,
Yeah.
and we bought into a center that's actually doing mining. We just kind of checked out a whole range of different offerings.
Yes.
So that you actually just invest in the company that's doing it,
Yeah.
rather
Like
than take on the hardware and all the rest of it yourself. So that's another option. It was an experiment more than a serious attempt.
yeah. Was it cloud mining? Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was your experience?
I have to ask Renee. He was keeping all the stats on it. He's probably got a little chart I could share with you.
But you're rich now, right? Like Kismet, it's on you tonight. No, I'd be interested in.
I'll get
Well,
some stats. He's got a spreadsheet.
yeah, cool. Excellent.
She's got a
Excellent.
big smile on.
The 1,000,000-watt smile.
Yes.
There was
Really
some
swaying
input
it.
a couple of weeks ago that it was actually easier to profit from investing in a mining pool than to actually mining. We had some input.
Well, just buying Bitcoin itself and sitting on it has been an investment that's really hard to beat.
Yes.
If you want to go into mining, there are lots and lots of variables. And I'm sure there are many miners that spent lots of effort and capital to invest in a mining operation that possibly barely did better, or maybe even did worse than if they would have just bought Bitcoin itself. So that won't always be the case, but Bitcoin's been on quite a tear the last 2 years. But
So electricity costs for a month?
it depends on where your hardware is. If you're in Venezuela, it's free.
Except you get arrested.
Yeah, except you get arrested. It costs you a night in jail. You go to the gulag, is what it costs.
The electricity's free in jail
What's
too.
Solar. Oh, yeah.
All the countries on the economic.
Yeah, I mean, Well, usually there are people around the world that have like hydroelectric or these other things that are less expensive than solar. So you never really know.
Gary, can you just explain, so Bitcoin Unlimited is now saying they can do whatever size, if their whatever theory goes ahead, system goes ahead, they would have the miner's going to determine the block size.
Yeah.
But that would change what I call money supply and what you call the inflation, right?
The block reward is always the same, regardless.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't change the size. It just
Doesn't
the
change.
transaction. It just speeds up the transaction process.
It just allows you to put more transactions into the next block.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay. More transactions, not
Right.
the actual money supply.
Now, what that does change though is the rate at which the blockchain grows. Right now, it's very predictable. It's hard drive space, right? I think the Bitcoin blockchain is like, I don't know, 100 gigs, 150 gigs, something like that right now. And it's growing at a steady rate because, every 10 minutes it's just going to be one more block. And one of the arguments against Bitcoin Unlimited is the blockchain will get very big, very fast, and it will no longer be possible for as many people to run a Bitcoin node. There will be centralization and co-optation and all the things that Bitcoin was supposed to guard against. So,
yeah, but on the other side, I mean, if it continues this way, you won't be able to use it as a basic transaction currency. It'll never reach that point. It'll just be
Right. It'll be something else.
Agreed.
It will be some sort of settlement layer because transactions could cost $100. It might cost $100 to write something to the Bitcoin blockchain, 10 years from now.
From the last time I was here, Willie was talking about how it's gone from a commodity to purely speculative to now it's in this realm of store of
Right.
long-term investment, store of value. With the gold currency, I'll never get there if it stays at 1 megabyte.
Right, right. Unless we get to segregated witness and Lightning Network, which should give us the ability to move a bulk of the transaction volume to another layer in the software stack, right? Where you segregated witness in combination with Lightning Network. These are two technologies that allow basically you to open up a channel, payment channel.
For like all the small transactions.
Right. So maybe all the transactions in Ubud for 24 hours go into a Lightning Network.
So they batch it all together.
Right. And then once every 24 hours you write to the Bitcoin blockchain, close the channel.
Who makes the
And-
decision on that?
That's the thing.
Decision to say-
Sounds like a reserve
That's
rate
the thing.
settlement.
No.
Everybody's got to hold hands. Everybody hold hands. You rock back and forth.
But yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Like,
It's all going to come together at Bali Spirit later this month.
Yeah, that's the part.
What actually happens is like, who makes the call on this? We all
It is,
get on like a certain time, make a vote or something, or
Well, what's interesting is these Bitcoin Unlimited folks are threatening to do a hard fork. They're threatening to say, look, we're never going to convince everybody, so we're going to take us and our maybe they can get to 60% of the hashing power. Perhaps they'll say, all right, we're going to create a block that is 1.2 megabytes. Are you guys going to acknowledge it? You want it? And maybe they'll find, because they've got 60% of the hashing power, maybe they'll find the next block and they'll create another block that's 1.5 megabytes. And then,
so that becomes Bitcoin 0.1 and Bitcoin 0.2, right?
well, yeah, if they fail to snap back to one Bitcoin blockchain, you have a fork and you now have two versions of Bitcoin.
So it's either fork or not, right?
Well, Bitcoin forks all the time, every day. There is multiple versions of the Bitcoin blockchain. And as soon as it gets too far out of whack, it goes over to one version of the truth, right? Because although you're only supposed to find one block every 10 minutes, sometimes, a miner in China will solve the puzzle. A miner in the United States will solve the puzzle, maybe like almost at the same time. And they say, I found a block, and people start building on two different blockchains. But when as a process of the Bitcoin consensus mechanism, at a certain point, everybody says, well, that blockchain is not the correct blockchain. We're all going to build on this other one.
So what happens to all the blocks on this blockchain that's not?
They become what's called an orphan block or blocks. If you look up the term orphan block, it's like you thought you had the solution, you thought you had the right blockchain, but really somebody else found the next block a split second before you did, and that's the true block.
I think this is actually quite interesting because, as I see that the miners don't have the incentive to really, they don't really care if there's a solution with SegWit or Bitcoin Unlimited, right?
They just go for the high
they're just getting paid now
transaction.
anyways. And so until you do 110% block reward, there's no incentive for the miners to choose.
Well, I usually throw up a graph that shows miner revenue.
Yeah.
And it's way up. And it's each block is a larger and larger proportion are the fees associated with that block. And yeah, they're making money.
They're cherry picking the best transaction.
Yeah, they're acting in their own self-interest.
No, exactly. There's no incentive for
That's
them
how
to
they-
choose
yeah.
a
Well, why does
solution.
any smaller transaction even happen?
Exactly. That's what
I
I
was saying 12 hours. I would think it would be like a week before you
totally.
could get,
Well, that's
Yeah,
why no one wants to spend on small transactions anymore. No one's buying a
In the past, we have had a respite. There's like a day-night cycle maybe, or there's a time when the transaction volume goes down, and all of those cheapo transactions end up making it in at a certain point in time. But as you can see here, we're not seeing any respite. You know, we're just oscillating between 30 megabytes or 40, 50 megabytes and 60 something
Can you go back?
megabytes.
You don't have this going back farther. No.
I don't have this going
we
back
looked at it
further.
last week, though, and it was much more clearly like a daily cyclical thing where up and down, up and
Right.
down.
Well, we have a bit of a cycle here. Here's the
Yeah.
cycle of transactions per second. So it does oscillate a little bit, and during those low
What happened
times,
February 23rd, 24th? There's a big jump there.
I don't know. Well,
Really big
the transactions per second has gone up.
How was the Bitcoin filter?
and-
No, I'm just kidding.
Right, I think you're right there.
There's so many things
That
correlated
or-
with
or
Tuesday
Trump
night,
tweet.
5 p.m. local time in Bali. Well, you know, there's been people that have been spamming the network. You know, if the average transaction, if the suggestion is 169 satoshis per byte, maybe somebody submits a huge transaction that's got tons and tons of outputs and pays a very high miner fee, but it's only one transaction. Just to make a point, you know, I'll pay $85 for this transaction, which there are transactions on the blockchain that the transaction fee is like $80, $90, $100, right? And that's one transaction, and it takes up 10, 15, 20% of the next block. So people are doing these things to make a point, and well, perhaps that's what was going on in here, some sort of a spam attack. Or, you know, people are doing things like, let me find it for you here. I was going to talk about this later, but why don't we talk about it now? This XO.1, watch our stress test live. They actually warned everybody that they are going to test their voting mechanism on the blockchain. Right? They don't care about Bitcoin as money. They care about Bitcoin as a piece of paper in the sky that nobody can mess with. And they've decided, like, it's worth it to us to pay to record our voting data in the Bitcoin blockchain. So we're going to use it as a voting machine. Like, you know, Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin has a set of rules, and anybody can use it for whatever they like. And these guys decided to use it for voting. And they got on, let me see, they got on Reddit and said, hey guys, just in case you were wondering, at this time UTC, the XO1 platform of Flux will be demonstrating the throughput of our secure voting system. Over 1 million votes per minute will be anchored to the Bitcoin blockchain for a total of approximately 1.5 billion votes over the 24 hours. This will take place, blah, blah, blah. So you get the idea. You know, you can use Bitcoin for whatever you want. You know, Bitcoin doesn't owe us anything. It's just a set of rules. And anybody can use it for anything. If they want to use it for voting and pay the fees, and the miners want to clear those voting transactions, they can do that. So fascinating.
Voting is just completely
Automated. It was. Let me see if. Let's check it out.
What's being voted on?
Here's. Let me just.
how bad the name is.
Secure
We
vote
like
trust
that name.
stress test. This is. Oh God.
These voting
Look at that.
systems,
Wow.
We're voting for this guy. Is that what we're voting for?
The
This guy?
quality of their website design.
I think it was a bit of a test, but they. I don't know.
That's a great photo.
That's hilarious.
That
Secure vote strike. I guess it's been running for 18 hours.
votes per minute, 1.4 million votes per minute.
GeoCities 93.
Wow.
Oh,
I feel like there should be like some music with this thing, like
Where's the guy
like we're coming to America. Or
Enough
whatever.
with the fireworks now.
Bring back the Ferrari guy.
Yeah, where's the Ferrari guy? Is that what we're voting for? To take that guy's Ferrari?
How big of a jerk is this guy?
Always is.
Anyway,
No, I've seen that, yeah.
kind of fascinating, huh?
Pretty creative.
Where's he work?
Should we go on to the next topic?
Yes.
You guys ready? All right.
He's a total-
Let's talk about Bitcoin 0.14. Bitcoin 0.14 is coming out soon. You can see right now these are all the software that's running out in the wild here. You can see 13.2, 13.1, These are the different colors. Basically, the top 3 colors on here are some, version of the Satoshi client, the core reference client version 13. But this blue area, see this little blue band here? Bitcoin Unlimited 1.0.
Oh,
Right?
so they've
they've got a little piece of the pie there.
already started.
It's not much yet. We still don't know how the world is going to react to this 10% incentive that Roger Ver has put up there. Roger Ver is one of the earliest investors in Bitcoin. Some people speculate that he's got over 400,000 Bitcoin,
Wow, that's a significant amount.
or 40,000. It's some astronomical amount. So he's like the George Soros of, oh, he would hate that. He's got money to, like, do whatever he wants. Like, open up a pet store and then open up a pet store across the street. Like pet store. Like he can open up a pet store inside the pet store. Like he's got like crazy money.
Gary's got big dreams.
Anyway, right now he's paying this 10% bonus. What you need to know about Bitcoin's upcoming code release, Bitcoin 14. Now these are the core developers. These are the people that are advocating segregated witness. These are the people that have provided the software since the beginning, right? They've built on top of Satoshi's client, and they have done it over and over and over again, and now they are on.
What is Twitter?
Oh, he's doing some analysis. Is that true? I've never seen the really. Oh, he's talking with Simon.
Okay.
Sidebar. But anyway, I don't have the graph handy, but this is where a bulk of the serious development is happening, where you've got the most developers, the most sophisticated developers, and the most repository commits happening on the Bitcoin software. It just totally eclipses the amount of effort that's going into Bitcoin Unlimited, if you look at it from a developer's standpoint. And this has been the software that is run, it's the reference client. It's the de facto standard for Bitcoin. And they're now on version 14, 0.14. It's a major release in the Bitcoin world. What does it implement? And it's important to understand the landscape here, because Bitcoin is it's an open source project, and it is an implementation that follows certain rules. And you've got the reference implementation that might have a bug, but it has its own bugs, right? And as long as everybody's running that software, if there's a bug, at least you don't lose consensus. Now Bitcoin Unlimited comes along, and they're not version 14, they're version 0.1. Because they have forked the original project, it's all open source software, and said we're going to implement our emergent consensus mechanism, which is their term for unlimited block size, or everybody will decide for themselves how big the next block will be. Emergent consensus is what they're calling it. And so the code base then splits. They're implementing the same rules, but there's a different code base. And what's interesting about that is as soon as you fork the code, and different developers are working on different things, you start to, either you implement exactly what the other person has implemented and vice versa, or you start to get part of the network running this piece of software and part of the network running this piece of software. Ostensibly, they're following a standard set of rules, but web browsers do this too. Web browsers have web standards, but sometimes something will work in one web browser but not in another web browser. That's the analogy. And you've got Bitcoin Unlimited. In my opinion, they're doing something quite dangerous. They're saying we're going to re-implement Bitcoin, and we're going to create these rules that we think will alleviate the congestion. Meanwhile, the Bitcoin core developers are doing all kinds of very sophisticated development around improving download speed of the blockchain, for example, or creating mechanisms for people to unstuck transactions by bumping the fee, right? Changes to the network protocol, right? How nodes talk with one another. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking right now.
So they're more interested in tweaking things to make it run faster, while Unlimited is actually trying to create the whole new.
Right. I mean, the core developers are addressing the throughput problem in their own way with segregated witness, which really is a more scalable and sophisticated approach to the scaling problem. And the Bitcoin Unlimited folks have a different suggested fix.
What the hell is segregated? Why do they call it segregated witness?
Because they're actually pulling something out of every transaction so that they've got more room
So
in the block.
They're segregating and then witnesses.
They're segregating the signature, is my understanding. Although I don't.
They got to work on a better name.
Yeah,
Because
it's not
Bitcoin, you know, when it's all of a sudden unlimited, blockchain unlimited, everyone's like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, no limits. Plus, you could put some fireworks on there. Question? Yeah.
Who pays developers? How do they? You said a large team of developers working. Who pays them? Are they miners? Are they associated with miners?
No, you could say that there are different factions in Bitcoin. There's the miners, there's the developers, there's the users, there's these guys voting. I don't know where I don't know what they're doing. No, there's different factions, and there used to be I don't know if it's still around, the Bitcoin Foundation used to take donations and they would pay developers. Actually, Dash, which is a competitor to Bitcoin, takes some of the block reward and pays developers out of the block reward, which is a different approach from Bitcoin. But it's open source, so there is no formal mechanism for paying the developers in Bitcoin. Yeah. It's open source development. There's a great.
So they get their money from their day job. It's a
Well, but there are also companies that pay their developers to improve open source software. There's a great essay. It's a classic from like the mid-90s called "The Cathedral and the Bazaar." I'll try and remember to post a link, and it describes the culture and anthropology of the troglodyte developer mind and what drives them to. No, I'm sorry. There's a lot of. I'm sure there's some non-troglodyte developers. Some of them might be in this room. I might have used to have been one of them. No, I'm not casting dispersions. I'm just trying to be stupid. No, but they have a whole kind of meritocracy, and there's other things that drive them besides money, which is just fascinating.
And some of the developers have been around for a while, so they
Right.
so
Right. Well, and part of the controversy is some of a chunk of them, more than one, are paid by a company called Blockstream, which is developing its own. It's a for-profit company that builds sidechain technology, which some people say benefits from the congestion. So there's all this, there are all these people that are basically raising their voices, saying that you're just trying to purposely cause congestion so that we can drive users into your arms and you can charge them for your proprietary solutions to the congestion problem, etc. So it's fascinating. It's just like a soap opera. It's better than an action-adventure film, and it's actually happening in our own life. You can get in the mix and be a character yourself in this adventure novel of ours. All right, what else should we talk about? Should we change the subject?
Fed's the last thing, right? Fed.
Well, this is we will talk about the Fed, but let's talk about this first. This is in Wired magazine, so I consider this like mainstream. We're your grandmother might pick up the Wired magazine and read the headlines. What's a better?
You might.
What's better than?
Your auntie?
Your auntie.
No, but ever since Andreas Antonopoulos was talking about grandmothers,
So it's just got to be the grandmother.
yeah, grandma's rich.
Well, here is what are they talking about on Wired magazine? Andy Greenberg, by the way, he's a stand-up guy. He is, in my opinion, he's a very good, fair-minded journalist, and he's covered lots of things: dark markets, the Silk Road, and now he's covering the Fed-proof online market, Open Bazaar. Are you guys familiar with Open Bazaar? Open Bazaar is a marketplace, a peer-to-peer marketplace, kind of like Bitcoin is peer-to-peer, this is a peer-to-peer marketplace. So I could actually download OpenBazaar onto my laptop, fire up the OpenBazaar software, and it would kind of look, send a message out to the internet and say, who else is running OpenBazaar? And someone would say, I'm running OpenBazaar, and I'm running OpenBazaar, I'm running OpenBazaar, and a real-time de facto network is established as soon as I start running the software. And then I tell my software that I'm selling Balinese bottle openers, right? That's my niche. Balinese bottle openers
The big penis
that
ones
are shaped in the shape of a phallus. You can only get them in Bali. That's my thing. And I can say I've got orange ones, blue ones, big ones, small ones, different stripes for different folks, guys. And basically it will, in a peer-to-peer way, tell all of these other OpenBazaar nodes that I have this thing to sell. And it ends up looking like eBay, but there's no centralized eBay service. There's just peer-to-peer selling stuff, right? Which means there's no, even Silk Road and these dark markets are centralized. There's a centralized server somewhere. They hide behind the Tor service, or they.
So this is more like Napster than Silk Road.
This is like BitTorrent. This is like This is like
.com,
we used to have Napster, and now we've got BitTorrent. We used to have the Silk Road, and now we've got OpenBazaar. And even though people they may find my bottle openers offensive, but damn it, I can sell them. I have the freedom to sell my bottle openers.
For Bitcoin.
And yeah, maybe for Bitcoin, maybe for something else.
I don't want to talk about that something else. We're not going to do that.
Well, there's other cryptocurrencies that make fungibility more important. Right. There's no credit cards. There's no dollars. They do not touch the fiat money system.
So it's a cryptocurrency market.
It is. It's an open peer-to-peer marketplace that uses cryptocurrency. And what's interesting about this is we speculate, is Bitcoin a speculative instrument? Is it a store of value, or is it a currency? These dark markets, whether you like them or not, you agree with them or disagree with them, they have proven that these cryptocurrencies can serve the function of currency. Even though they're volatile, even though they go crazy, there's enough of a service that it can provide that it forms that it provides that service. And actually, it's a double-edged sword, and sometimes I scratch my head and I wonder, would we be here today if we didn't have the dark market? I really don't like it when we get cast in that light of the dark web, the dark, the nefarious
There was
bad
an
guys.
article in Wired magazine ages ago where they said without pornography, the internet wouldn't be what it is today.
Yeah, they're like that's where the innovation happens, right?
Yeah.
On the edges.
That's ironic.
I don't know. Well, in Bali they wear the checkered sarongs, right, to represent the light and the dark. Seems like
there's a local startup in Indonesia, Kaskus. It essentially built its essentially user base because it was very popular with college students to basically share pornography. It doesn't have any pornography on it, but it's a huge, essentially, trading platform. But it built up that base of tens of millions of users because
it solved that problem.
It solved that problem for all. And now it's one of the most successful.
Necessity is the mother of
startups
invention.
in Asia.
It's a beautiful thing to behold.
So once they got their user base, then they got rid of it.
All right, I'm getting a little steamy, hot, and bothered. So whenever I need to cool off, I just think of Janet Yellen. So let's talk about Janet Yellen. That definitely cools my jets. I just have to. Where is she? Where is Janet Yellen?
She's looking good.
Where is she?
Oh, where is she? Is this it?
Does she have orange hair now?
Maybe I lost that tab. Sorry, guys. I'm not as organized. Is that her? That's not
Let's translate it. That's what we're talking about.
Here we go. All right. Now for something completely different. Interest rates in the United States. Now, why on earth we talk about interest rates? I'm going to put you guys to sleep, but this is actually a very exciting time. An exciting time. Exciting interest rates. If Janet Yellen raises interest rates in March, it will be the third time in 10 years. This doesn't happen every day. In 2008,
Also the third time in 3 months.
right. Well, yeah. Well, they did it in the December of 2015, and then they just now did it again in December of 2016, and now the drums are rolling. And I don't know what. Maybe they have the date in here. It's coming up here, guys. I think
next week.
the 15th, the Ides of March, a very auspicious day. The 15th of March. So we got the ETF on the third. We got bitcoinsandbali.org tomorrow at 5 o'clock. We got the Bitcoin ETF on March 13th, and now on the 15th, the Ides of March. Will they or won't they raise interest rates? Why is this a big deal? Why do we care?
It's going to have to be zero for how long?
Right. And in 2008,
it screwed up Bali quite a bit.
It's a war on savers. It actually makes it impossible. We are motivated to spend our money and not save it because the Federal Reserve has artificially kept interest rates very, very low, artificially low for the last 8 years, and they were already coming down before then under Bernanke, and they've been basically zero for 8 years since the financial crisis. Now, what does this do?
Land prices in Bali or most developing countries, largest increase, inflation.
Right. It allows you to borrow more money because the price of borrowing that money is lower than it would otherwise be. So what happens to the price of a house or a piece of real estate when the interest rate goes from 3% to 7%? It basically becomes less affordable. It changes the price of the house, right? And I would argue that because interest rates have been manipulated for so long, we really do not know what things cost. It has distorted the price of everything. Right? What is your house really worth when interest rates are allowed to seek their market-based level, right? And because we've been at zero for so long, you can bet that your house is worth less than what Zillow says, right? Because the price of money has been artificially low for years and years and years. You know, we had the housing crisis in 2008. You know, somebody bought $1 million house, and then whoopsie-daisy, a month later, it's only worth $600,000. You know, was I really that poor a judge of a house that I was off by $400,000? No, it's the manipulation of the price of everything. It's easy to see in houses, but it shows up in all kinds of everyday everything. And you know, this was supposed to bring us out of the recession, right? This was supposed to be a stimulus. You know, you don't know your own spending habits. We need to rely on Janet Yellen to decide if you should be spending or not. We're going to goose the economy with a low interest rate. We're going to goose the economy with quantitative easing or money printing, and that's going to do what the market itself is not smart enough to do. And I think it's pretty safe to say, I mean, I have decided for myself that these Fed policies have not worked, right?
Well, they saved us.
What was the objection?
No,
That's the narrative.
no, I don't think so.
Well, the thing is, we are due for another
It's led us to
recession.
Trump. Something
Yeah.
I
like
say the tiny house market.
Tiny houses, yes.
that.
I'm ready.
In Indonesia are
I'm ready for my
counted.
tiny house, 128 square feet.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
Plus,
Anyway, that is happening on the 15th. A mere 8 days from now, we can talk about it again next Tuesday. We can say, oh, what's going to happen tomorrow? And anyway, what this article says it's almost a sure thing. The Fed has, they said that they were going to raise rates 4 times last year. They only did it once, and they've lost credibility. And now they're putting themselves on a path. They call it the dot plot. They want to raise rates on a regular basis so that people can plan so people can decide how much their money is going to cost. Do we open the new factory or not? How much is?
What is the rate going to be? Is it,
They've been raising 25 basis points per.
so now what is it? Is it
hike.
0.75? Is that what it is now?
Yeah, right now I think it's between 0.5 and 0.75, and maybe next time it will be between 0.75 and 1. Right. And for those of us in Indonesia who drive our scooters by all those money shops, and we've been seeing $1 is worth 13.3, 13.2. This should strengthen the dollar, and if it doesn't, then where things are going to get a little kooky.
Well, it's already strengthened.
I think it's
They
already
anticipated already.
True. Well, I mean, by how much though? Because last year it went up to 14.
Yeah, I remember.
You remember that?
Yeah, but that was a brief. That was for how long? That was.
It was short, but anyway, it's I think we're in for a little bit of a rough ride. This should make the dollar stronger. Nobody else around the world is raising rates. The
But
yen.
in terms of the currency rupiah, it's less to do with that because Indonesia is a relatively small market for currency, so it's very easy for folks in Singapore. I mean, the change. It has nothing. The Fed has overall effects on this economy. Not the currency is always been volatile.
Well, it makes the dollar stronger, so that makes an Indonesian vacation much more attractive, right? So maybe Indonesia thinks it's good, or at least some people think it's a good thing.
Does a stronger US dollar decrease the incentive for investing in Bitcoin? Will a stronger US dollar result in a weaker demand for Bitcoin?
Well, it could drive the price of Bitcoin down because especially if you're thinking about Bitcoin as a currency. If its relative strength increases, then it could drive the price of Bitcoin down. So you got right. So on the 15th, if she does raise rates and that's not already built into the Bitcoin USD cross, then it should drive the price of Bitcoin down. But you got to weigh that with the ETF news and the fact that we're right and the filter on Tuesday, 5 p.m. local time at hubu.org. Did I mention that? Who knows?
Sounds like there's some PR manipulation going on here. That's all I'm hearing from Wall Street.
I know. I'm just pumping this little meeting of ours. Speaking of which, guys, we are just about out of time. Should we talk about one more thing?
China.
Should we talk about one more thing?
China.
China. Well, we don't really know much about Bitcoin. Or about China yet. I mean, they said that they were going to raise the restrictions for Bitcoin withdrawals in a month. 1 month would be March 9th. So stay tuned. Maybe we'll have more to talk about next week. All right, guys. Well, we do this every week at 5 p.m. local time. I'm glad that we have a full room, and I'm glad you guys are all here. And it is crazy times in Bitcoin. We need to figure this all out together. Don't forget that we're going to close the Bitcoins in Bali group. So if you're not already a member, get in there, man. Get in there and help us crowdsource. Where is that thing? Help us crowdsource the news at the Bitcoins in Bali group. That's facebook.com/group/Bitcoins in Bali. We're going to close this group. We're going to create a little place for us all to hang out together, and that's going to close soon. So get in there and help us crowdsource the news. Don't forget, we've got Bitcoin 101 on the 25th of March. Send us your noobs, and we'll have more information on the bitcoinsinbali.org website, and also in the Facebook group. You can find more information. If you're interested in Willy Woo's work, he publishes on Twitter first, is my understanding. You can find him at DangerMouse117. This is the cartoon representation of Willy. He's actually a real person, though.
He looks better there.
And my name is Gary. You can find me at Dykstra.net. I'm also on Twitter. And like I said, we always get together. Hubud is nice enough to give us an air-conditioned space to meet. We get together every week, 5 p.m. local time at Hubud. If you're in Bali, I hope you'll join us in person. Thanks for coming tonight, guys, and we'll see you next time. Hold on, let me turn this off. Oh, and we're going over to Kismet, guys.
Can't go here. This is yours.
Bye, guys. We're going.